Law enforcement in Fair Lakes, Fairfax County, Virginia, received a 911 call on February the 3rd of 2025 from a male teen who claimed that he'd killed 2 people. It would later emerge that the report was false and deliberately made to lure police to the scene. When officers arrived, a hooded balaclava-wearing suspect ran towards a marked police vehicle, which was unoccupied, unlocked, and had the engine running. The officer in charge of the cruiser was nearby talking with a colleague, who was also in a marked vehicle. The officer tried to intercept the suspect, but retreated upon noticing that he was armed with a knife. He slipped and fell to the ground when the suspect charged him. The officer rose back to his feet and began grappling with the suspect for control over the knife, as seen on dashcam and bodycam footage. The other officer drew his pistol but didn't fire, as his colleague had gained the upper hand in the altercation and was successful in taking down the teenage suspect. Only after making the arrest did the officer, a 6-year veteran of the department, notice that the suspect had stabbed him in the torso. He was taken to the hospital, received treatment, and was expected to recover. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis told the media, "It was only a matter of a couple of inches or so, and we could have been having a much different on-scene press conference. No one involved in the altercation was identified, but the suspect was arrested and charged with malicious wounding of a police officer." Number 13. Samba Faal, Roshane Daley, and Amadou Sarr. Officers in Birmingham, England, were escorting a man suspected of abuse in January of 2018 when a masked trio ambushed him on Skipton Road, Edgbaston. The assailants would later be identified as Samba Faal, Roshane Daley, and Amadou Sarr, all of whom were in their 20s. The men, who were said to be associated with the 23 Drillers Birmingham street gang, proceeded to punch, kick, and strike their target with a traffic cone. By the time that officers drew their tasers and radioed for help, Faal, Daley, and Sarr made off in a Volkswagen Golf that had been parked nearby. After additional units arrived at the scene, the car was located and the suspects were arrested. A search of the vehicle produced a balaclava and a baseball bat. One of the cops working on the case later told a media outlet, clearly the suspect in custody was the intended victim. But these 3 clearly showed no regard for the officers. The degree of injury sustained by the victim was unclear, but he survived the beatdown and was ultimately released without charge for the abuse case. Faal, Daley, and Sarr admitted a fray at Birmingham Crown Court and were each sentenced to a year in prison in October of 2019. Number 12. Saul Philpott. In late September of 2025, Englishman Saul Philpott, aged 27, flashed a smile as he was led to the cells after he was handed a sentence of 3 years and 2 months at Canterbury Crown Court. It stemmed from a 14-month-long campaign of abuse led against an unnamed former girlfriend. It involved repeated beatings as well as biting her and strangling her, including one incident in which he applied pressure to her neck until her lips turned blue. "I still remember looking into Saul's eyes as he strangled me and saw evil," the victim recounted. Philpott's abuse led to her suffering a miscarriage and dropping out of university, in addition to wreaking havoc on her mental health. He was a serial abuser who'd served sentences for attacking partners in 2019 and 2022. Among past incidents listed in court was him beating a former girlfriend unconscious with a marble chopping board and biting another hard in the cheek in the back of a taxi. Number 11. Fldaa Meraz. On July the 28th of 2015, Alexandria Ali Eastman, aged 25, was shot dead at a mobile home in Sierra Vista, Arizona. 6 people, all of whom were admitted illicit drug users, were at the home when the shooting occurred. One witness would report that a young woman named Fldaa Meraz had grabbed the house gun and fired a single shot at Eastman from 4 to 5 feet away. The bullet hit her in the heart. Meraz was found hiding in the bathroom of a nearby mobile home and arrested shortly thereafter. She pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. The key witness died before her trial, but his earlier recorded testimony clearly identified Meraz as the killer. The prosecution contended that the main reason was jealousy. Meraz, who'd recently returned from a drug rehab center in Mexico, was unhappy about the relationship between Eastman and Fabian Borges Martinez. The latter had a child with Meraz. Borges Martinez was also dealing drugs, and an additional reason might have been rooted in reports that Ali was a snitch, working as a confidential informant for the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. Meraz's trial ran for 6 days in January of 2017, and her defense was built around the argument that it was actually Borges Martinez who'd shot Eastman. On the last day of legal proceedings, Meraz was removed from the courtroom after she blurted out, "I didn't shoot her, and Ali was my friend." The jury deliberated for about an hour before finding her guilty of second-degree murder, for which she was handed a 16-year sentence. Number 10. Christian Pierre and Yariel Sandoval. On December the 1st of 2024, an argument erupted outside the Rose venue and after-hours club on Murfreesboro Pike in Nashville, Tennessee. One of the individuals involved in the conflict was 20-year-old Christian Pierre, and another was Yariel Sandoval, a boy in his mid-teens. The dynamics of the conflict were unclear, and the authorities didn't reveal if Pierre and Sandoval were on the same side of the dispute. An unnamed man that was arguing with Pierre then got into a vehicle in which the passengers were another male, two 19-year-old girls, and 18-year-old Ashley Dominguez. As the vehicle pulled away, Pierre walked onto Murfreesboro Pike with a rifle and started shooting, hitting the vehicle multiple times. The driver pulled over a few blocks from the club upon realizing that Dominguez and the other girls had been shot. All three were taken to Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where Dominguez was pronounced dead. She had graduated high school that May and had dreams of traveling the world, according to her grieving family. Sandoval's role in the shooting was unclear, but the authorities reported that they developed him as a suspect based on surveillance footage. He was arrested in December and charged as an adult with criminal homicide and other charges. Pierre's bond was set at $2 million after he was taken into custody in late February of 2025 on 4 counts of attempted criminal homicide and 1 count of criminal homicide. His and Sandoval's cases were ongoing as of the latest information available on the matter. Number 9. Tariq Monteiro and Syed Mohamud. On the night of August the 12th of 2019, English teenager Alex Smith was having a meal at a Nando's near Euston Station in London. He was in the company of other youths associated with a Camden-based street gang. Simultaneously, a group of 6 from a rival gang had been driving around the Fitzrovia and Houston Road area in 2 stolen cars. They were looking for adversaries to attack and set their sights on Smith as he was leaving the restaurant. The group were heard screaming and laughing as they chased after Smith with a machete. Smith desperately shouted for help before his pursuers cornered him in Munster Square, Camden, and knifed him in the chest. Smith collapsed near the doorstep of a family home where he was pronounced dead by first responders at 11:10 p.m. The suspects left the scene in a stolen vehicle which was later found burned out in the area. A number of arrests followed, but the men suspected of having carried out the fatal stabbing, drill rappers Tariq Monteiro and Syed Mohamud, fled to Kenya in the murder's wake. Monteiro and Mohamud, who performed as suspects in Swavey, were part of the Agag Grove gang, and they had been hunting for their Combo gang rivals as part of recurring episodes of tit-for-tat violence. Monteiro, who was aged 19 at the time of the attack on Smith, was reported to have wielded the machete while wearing a stab-proof vest. He was the one that delivered the fatal strike, but Mohamud, who'd assisted him as a backup, was deemed equally culpable. The duo was eventually tracked down to the Kilimani district of Nairobi and sent back to the UK in the spring of 2023. Monteiro and Mohamud were jailed for life with minimum custodial sentences of 24 and 23 years respectively. Number 8. Jessie Stone. An unnamed 91-year-old woman awoke to find an intruder in her home in Reddick, Florida, in the early hours of June the 9th of 2024. The suspect would later be identified as Jessie Stone, and at the time of the home invasion, he was in his early teens. He beat the nonagenarian up and forced himself on her before fleeing the scene. The victim survived and was taken to the hospital, where she gave a report to detectives from the Marion County Sheriff's Office. Stone was subsequently identified through DNA evidence and surveillance footage. The victim mentioned that the day before the attack, Stone had stopped by to chat, as he often had in the past. She knew him and believed he was a good boy. During his interviews with detectives, Stone was shown a video of a person wearing a dark t-shirt and shorts while jogging in the area of the victim's home on the night before the attack. The teen denied that it was him in the video, but detectives noting that he was wearing the same clothes. Stone eventually admitted to unlawfully entering the victim's home through the living room door. He said that he watched adult videos on her iPad before assaulting her. Stone was charged as an adult with burglary of a dwelling with battery, as well as battery of an intimate nature. The teen, who was over 7 decades younger than the victim, pleaded guilty to his charges in November of 2024. His lawyer argued for rehabilitation in a youth center, noting that the teen had had a difficult upbringing and that he suffered from depression, ADHD, and an addiction to X-rated content. He was raised by a paternal grandmother and had no father figure in his life. The lawyer added his brain was nowhere near fully developed and is still probably 10 years off from that being the case. Stone's representative aimed to prevent him from entering the state prison system, as he was expected to be a target for prison violence given his age and the nature of his crime. Ultimately, the severity of Stone's actions outweighed all the other considerations associated with his case. In February of 2025, the youth was sentenced to 25 years in prison and ordered to register as an offender for 30 years. Number 7. Brandon Dobbs and Morgan Kemble. Teenagers Brandon Dobbs and Morgan Kemble encountered a homeless man while looking for drugs in an area of Swansea, Wales, on November the 6th of 2024. The youths struck up a conversation with the man, and he told them that they could find a dealer at the church at the top of Swansea's High Street. When the trio got there, they were unable to score. Dobbs and Kemble turned their rage on the homeless man, whom they punched, kicked, and beat with a pair of crutches they'd found on the ground. The attack was suspected to have been fueled by drink and/or drugs. The victim was robbed of his phone and wallet. When he tried to follow Dobbs and Kemble, the former punched him again and threatened that he had a shank. The authorities were called and arrested the youths on the Strand, where they were found with blood on their clothes. Dobbs and Kemble, both of whom had multiple prior convictions, were each sent to a Young Offenders Institute for 3 years detention. Number 6. Elijah Turner Reyes. In late September of 2025, Piru Bloods gang member Elijah Turner Reyes was added to the Texas 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list by the Texas Department of Public Safety. The El Paso Police Department had issued a warrant for the face-tattooed thug since May the 22nd on a murder charge. The investigation was ongoing and the police didn't release specifics about the killing in question. In June, additional warrants for Reyes were issued after he'd failed to appear in court and faced charges of drug possession, assault of a pregnant person, and burglary of a habitation. The authorities noted that the gang member, who stood at about 6 feet and weighed roughly 150 pounds, should be considered armed and dangerous. The public were warned not to engage with him and notify law enforcement upon making visual contact. Number 5. Cortez Berry. In 2011, Georgia teen Cortez Berry was charged with aggravated assault, robbery, and theft of a motor vehicle and sentenced to probation in juvenile court. He violated his probation in 2013 and was ordered to spend the rest of his 8-year sentence in confinement. A few years later, he was moved from a youth center to the Al Burris Correctional Training Center in Forsyth. In 2015, he was attacked and humiliated while behind bars. The day before he was going to turn 18, Berry was approached by a group of men belonging to a gang known as the Gangster Disciples, or GD Nation. Berry was told that he should join the gang, seeing that he would soon be moved to the adult holding areas. Berry refused, whereupon he was jumped by the gang and beaten into submission. One of the inmates had a cell phone and captured a photo of Berry, whose face was severely swollen. The youth was held in a makeshift leash by a shirtless thug who threw up a gang sign, while another shirtless man made a gun sign with his hand and pointed it at the camera. The photo surfaced on Facebook with the caption, "When you disrespect the nation, it brings nothing but pain and suffering." It went viral, sparking outrage from Berry's family and calls for prison reform. Berry was placed in protective custody and he made parole in 2020. Roughly 3 months after his release in November of 2020, he orchestrated a robbery at Johnson's Beauty and Barber Salon on Eve Street in Augusta. 2 men were shot dead during the robbery. Berry and his 2 accomplices, both aged 18, were arrested on multiple charges, including felony and malice murder. In May of 2024, Berry, who'd once been seen as a victim of the prison system, was handed 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. Number 4. Shane Cunningham, Cartel Bushnell, and Leo Knight. On June the 10th of 2023, English teenagers Shane Cunningham, Cartel Bushnell, and Leo Knight were attending the birthday party of a teenage girl in Bath, Somerset. CCTV showed them traveling to the residence on a bus from Wiltshire. The 3 were armed with large knives concealed in their clothes in case the gathering turned violent. The party was reportedly crashed by dozens of youths after it was advertised on social media. Witnesses reported that at some point a conflict broke out and up to 10 boys brandished bladed weapons such as swords and zombie knives. Among them was Mikey Roynan, an aspiring drill rapper in his mid-teens. While in the property's garden, he reportedly swung a knife at Bushnell, but failed to strike him. Cunningham rushed to his friend's defense and plunged a hunting-style knife into the back of Roynan's neck. The wound proved devastating and Roynan collapsed in the street. A neighbor, 49-year-old Sharon Gray, was alerted to the stabbing by her daughter. Gray went outside, made her way through the crowd of teenagers and performed chest compressions on Roshane until an ambulance arrived at the scene. Roshane ultimately succumbed to the stab wound. In the immediate aftermath, Cunningham, Bushnell, and Knight fled the scene and disposed of their knives. 2 of the blades, including the murder weapon, were recovered by the police. The trio was arrested, and as seen in videos of their police interviews, they refused to speak about what had happened. During the legal proceedings that followed, Cunningham claimed that he'd acted in self-defense, but he was ultimately convicted of murder. He was jailed for life with a minimum of 16 years behind bars, meaning that he would become parole eligible in his mid-30s. The judge added during sentencing, Bristol and its surrounding areas are in the middle of a plague of knife crime. The lives of boys who carry knives continue to be taken by those who also carry knives. Addressing Cunningham, Bushnell, and Knight, the judge told them how you each got hold of these horrendous and unlawful weapons and why you took them to the party will never be known. Bushnell and Knight were found guilty of manslaughter and jailed for 9 years and 9.5 years, respectively. Number 3. Saul Nuñez. On June the 2nd of 2017, Bronx man Saul Nuñez launched a deranged attack on 90-year-old Juan Llorens on an inward sidewalk. As seen on surveillance footage, 19-year-old Nuñez approached a senior citizen, kicked his shopping cart, and then struck him in the head with a cane, inflicting a bloody gash to his left ear. Good Samaritans intervened and prevented further violence, after which Nuñez was arrested for assault and criminal possession of a weapon. It would emerge that the young man, a diagnosed schizophrenic, wasn't even supposed to be on the street. His mother, Rosa Nazar, had called up police in March and asked officers to take him to the hospital because he'd been having violent delusions. He started carrying a cane to fight off devils approaching him. Nazar recounted her son's justification for arming himself, saying that Saul extended the cane and all the devils were sucked at the bottom of the cane. He was admitted at the North Central Bronx Hospital on March the 22nd, but released a little over a week later in spite of Nazar's insistence that he needed more treatment and might hurt somebody. I begged this hospital not to release my son, Nazar later told the New York Post. Then, in early June, he attacked the nonagenarian. A little over a month later, Llorens said that he'd already forgiven Nuñez, adding, "The doctors are to blame. The mother asked for help and they released him anyway." Updates from 2019 indicated that Nuñez's condition had been stabilized with a monthly injection of the psychiatric drug Enviga, and he was released from Rikers to continue treatment at home. Number 2. Alexi and Jairo Saenz. Prior to his arrest in 2017, Alexi Blasty Saenz led the Sailors Locos Salvatrucas West Side, an MS-13 clique operating out of Long Island, New York. Alexi's younger brother Jairo, aka Funny, was his second in command. The brutality unleashed by the clique under Alexi's leadership would be described by prosecutors as unprecedented even for the MS-13. A gang that valued violence and murder above all else. Alexi and Jairo took part in large-scale drug trafficking, arson attacks, prison contraband plots, and greenlit at least 8 murders. The killings took place in a single calendar year from January the 28th of 2016 to January the 30th of 2017 in Suffolk County. Among them was the high-profile double murder of Nisa Mickens and Kayla Cuevas, both students at Brentwood High School. Cuevas had reportedly had disputes with MS-13 members at the school, leading to an altercation after which the thugs vowed to take revenge. On the evening of September the 13th of 2016, members of the Sailors clique were driving around Brentwood hunting for rival gang members when they spotted Cuevas and Mickens walking down residential Starley Street. The thugs called the Saenz brothers, who gave them permission to kill the girls. Cuevas and Mickens, her childhood friend, were chased down, then butchered and battered to death with machetes and baseball bats. Less than a month later, Sailors clique members befriended teenager Javier Castillo, whom they believed was affiliated with the 18th Street Gang, one of MS-13's principal rivals. They convinced him to meet them to smoke marijuana in an isolated marsh area in Cow Meadow Park. It was there that they took turns hacking Castillo to death with a machete. Even though Alexi was in his early 20s at the time of authorizing the murders, the authorities determined that his hands were drenched in blood, and that under his leadership, the Sailors clique was the most violent and destructive MS-13 clique operating in the United States. Alexi, whom then President Donald Trump, described as a bloodthirsty MS-13 leader, pleaded guilty to 8 murders and a plethora of additional charges. He was jailed for 68 years in July of 2025. Jairo was only 19 years old when he was involved with the brutal killings. In January of 2025, he admitted 7 murders and various other charges, facing a minimum of 40 years and a maximum of 60, as per the terms of his plea agreement. Number 1. Christian Cavazos. While he was in his late teens in the fall of 2019, documented 10K gang member Christian Cavazos went on a killing spree that resulted in the death of 5 people in the area of Houston, Texas. On September the 6th, he was riding in a car with other gang affiliates and opened fire on a group in a separate vehicle. The driver was wounded and pulled over in the 11300 block of Windfern. Cavazos got out and gunned down 19-year-old Ryan McGowan, who was in the back seat. "He kept hunting my son down like an animal," the victim's mother later told the media. Within weeks, Cavazos claimed 2 more victims. On September the 25th, Ramiro and Rosalva Reyes, aged 65 and 63, respectively, returned to their home in the city's northwest. They had just been to the hospital after Rosalva's elderly mother had died. Shortly after the couple had parked their purple Dodge Charger, they were caught in a hail of bullets unleashed by Cavazos. The teen opened fire on the Reyes after mistaking them for rival gang members. Roxana Villarreal, the couple's only daughter, was later quoted as saying, "It will affect our life for the rest of our lives." 2 days after Christmas, Cavazos and several of his gang affiliates carried out a drive-by shooting, targeting an outdoor rap video set in North Harris County. Dozens of rounds were fired during the attack, and the unfolding chaos was partly captured by the crew recording the rap video. Aspiring filmmaker Gonzalo Gonzalez, aged 20, was hit multiple times and he died at the scene. The second fatality was Jonathan Jimenez, a 22-year-old father who was on camera in the rap video. At least 7 other people suffered injuries. Federal and local authorities had been investigating Cavazos and the 10K for years. After raiding the teenage killer's home, they recovered high-powered rifles, handguns, drugs, and more than $20,000 in cash. The Harris County DA told the media, "I've been doing this for 10 years. I have never seen anybody like Mr. Cavazos, and I don't know if I ever will see someone like Mr. Cavazos again." The youth was sentenced to life without parole in the fall of 2024 after admitting multiple counts of murder.